The Titanic, Belfast. The Titanic was a luxury British steamship that sank in the early hours of April 15, 1912 after striking an iceberg, leading to the deaths of more than 1,500 passengers and crew. The building of the RMS Titanic. The Titanic was the product of intense competition among rival shipping lines in the first half of the 20th century. The White Star Line faced an increasing challenge from its main rivals Cunard, which had recently launched the Lusitania, and the Mauretania, the fastest passenger ships then in service, and the German lines Hamburg, America, and Norddeutsche
International Mercantile Marine Company. But I thought you built British ships. They fly the British flag, James, and they shall be constructed in our finest shipyard by our most skilled craftsmen.
The same year that Cunard unveiled its two magnificent liners, J. Bruce May, chief executive of White Star, discussed the construction of three large ships with William J. Peary, chairman of the shipbuilding company Harland and Wolff, part of a new Olympic class of liners. Each ship would measure 882 feet in length and 92.5 feet at their broadest point, making them the largest of their time. In March 1909, work began in the massive Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast, Ireland, on the second of these three ocean liners, Titanic, and continued non-stop for 2 years. Following completion of the hull and main superstructure, the Titanic was launched on May 31, 1911. It then began the fitting out phase as machinery was loaded into the ship and interior work began. After the Olympics maiden voyage in June 1911, slight changes were made to the Titanic's design. In early April 1912, the Titanic underwent its sea trials, after which the ship was declared seaworthy. On April 10, 1912, the Titanic set sail on its maiden voyage, traveling from Southampton, England, to New York City, nicknamed the Millionaire's Special because of his popularity with wealthy passengers. The voyage nearly began with a collision, however, when suction from the Titanic caused the docked New York to swing into the giant liner's path. After an hour of maneuverings to prevent the accident, the Titanic was underway. After some 2 hours, the Titanic resumed its journey. On the morning of April 11, the liner made its last scheduled stop in Europe, at Queenstown Island. At approximately 1:30 p.m. the ship set sail for New York City. On board were some 2,200 people, approximately 1,300 of whom were passengers. Throughout much of the voyage, the wireless radio operators on the Titanic, Jack Phillips and Harold Bride, had been receiving iceberg warnings, most of which were passed along to the bridge. The two men worked for the Marconi Company, and much of their job was relaying passengers' messages. On the evening of April 14th, the Titanic began to approach an area known to have icebergs. Smith slightly altered the ship's course to head farther south. However, he maintained the ship's speed of some 22 knots. The Titanic began to turn, but it was too close to avoid a collision. The ship's starboard side scraped along the iceberg. At least 5 of its watertight compartments toward the bow were ruptured.
After assessing the damage, Andrews determined that, as the ship's forward compartments filled with water, its bow would drop deeper into the ocean, causing water from the ruptured compartments, thereby sealing the ship's fate.